Alright, welcome back to another Slice of Life episode of Project Zero. What once used to be the Outer Project ARP, and back then was a self-therapeutic psychiatric multimedia project to solve the problems, challenges, obstacles of life, so blah blah blah, as well as some process to reach high goals and visions we set for ourselves, those around us, and since then has grown and burgeoned and blossomed into something very different, but far more comprehensive, a manifestation of the self. And it takes form in a variety of different methods, series, analogies, and so on and so forth, ideas and concepts. Probably the most tangible way in terms of platforms is happens on Spotify, Patreon, YouTube, Twitch, and further on down the road. In terms of podcasts, episodes, series, videos, and so far. Okay, so without further ado, this is a continuation of the previous recording, and this is on once again. I'm a little bit miffed. I'm not particularly happy about this because I wanted to cover all the tabs at once, but part of me already knew that there were too many tab topics to get through, specifically, especially when most of this particular domain of life, when it comes to abstract symbolism, spirituality, mythology, religion, has so much storytelling, so many fables, so many lessons, so many different things you can draw from, that it's kind of inevitable that's going to take longer to get through. But I'm still not pleased. So without further ado, right, this is going to be part 2 of Durga, Puja Mandir, and also Eshu Elegwa of the Yoruba. Okay. Specifically, this one we're going to do a little bit of a slightly deeper dive and start reading some context behind these figures. All right. It's a follow-up from the previous episode. Okay, so in Wikipedia, Eshu is a pivotal orisa, Irunmole, in the Yoruba spirituality or Yoruba religion, known as is a prominent primordial divinity, a delegated and sent by the Olodumare, who descended from all these names. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. Ikole Urun, delegated Urunbule, sent by the Olodumare, who is descended from Ikole Urun and the chief enforcer of natural and divine laws. You'll find in particularly African culture, they have a lot of references to the various aspects of nature, right? Once again, there's a lot of that. Is part of that Eastern kind of emphasis on the nature and surroundings, the surrounding environment, like agriculture and harvesting. Also in terms of there's a lot of focus on unpredictability, right? So for example, back then, in terms of anthropology, the development of humanity, before the agrarian areas, you would presume that a lot of survival was based off the capacity for people to grow crops, and so a lot of survival, right? Especially back then with each family or tribe having each quote unquote union between a mother and father. I'm talking about that kind of family, but families were much bigger back then because once again we'd have anywhere between 8 to 15 children per family household. Right, because they would all come. There were no houses. They would just live in tiki huts, and they go outside to work on the farm fields, trying to help with the hunting and gathering. It's the primordial version of society, where little villages before they develop into industrialization or agriculture. And so, as a result, there was a lot of unpredictability. I remember when I had colleagues who were Sri Lankan, and they would tell me about about their festive holidays. One of the festivities they had was to celebrate the rising of the sun, And once again has a lot to do, traditionally speaking, with the unpredictability and being a lot of thankfulness, right, and gratitude and appreciation for things going well, right, and then also like so for agriculture and harvest and good crop season, and also therefore also there's going to be a different manifestation that they would conjure up. They would usually depict with a separate deity, a different goddess or god, representing the chaos and tragedy and turmoil that unfolds. Let's say if the crops don't do well and there is drought, right? Once again, like modern day meteorology, we understand how all that works and everything, permaculture, the different hydrologic systems, right, in the ecosystem. But of course back then that wasn't a thing. So they used different tactics and methodologies to try to allow themselves to push through the challenges and difficulties that they had to face in everyday life. Some of the things, again, I think modern day society still needs to revisit, because there's a lot of people who don't use this well enough, and that kind of corrupts them. Kind of like stray, like technology and social media and that crap, kind of like tainting and corrupting the positive and productive side of humanity. Although that was there back then too, right? But these analogies, again, these folklore, I would say folklore, there we go, mythology, folklore is also very important for helping populations at that time to survive and have some sense of hope, right? Not like learned helplessness. They have a reason to look forward to the future, to keep pressing on even when things don't go well. And as a result, there's a lot of cultivated perseverance and resilience that isn't there today, where I would say like there's like trust fund babies and like spoiled brats nowadays. There's a lot of self-entitlement now. I'm not saying there wasn't back then, but definitely now it's like very, very normalized to the point that people don't even notice it. They're not even self-aware of how well they have it. And so, a little tiny little thing in there, and then suddenly, oh, that's weird, oh, that's why you're uncomfortable, and then they throw a fit or a temper tantrum, and they start, getting all hostile and aggressive. Back then, it was just normal. Like, this is just an everyday thing. There's no way you could accept being this fragile or this, like, I don't know, like, pissy, or, it's just ridiculous. So that's why it's very helpful to have these kinds of, like, folklore and, again, spirituality. It's gonna kind of grounds you. That's the main thing here, right? It grounds you. And once again, coming back to Eshu, that's kind of the main theme here, right? Because once again, when there's like a drought season, right, things don't do well, as happens in everyday life, right? You should expect this. You should expect the unexpected. You should, be better safe than sorry. That's how the norm is supposed to be throughout like thousands and thousands of years. And only recently have people started to like, I don't know what to tell you. It's just stupid. Right, so there we go. Let's read a little bit more further down here. The overview, the other names of the Orunla called, I can't read the names here, honestly. I'm going to butcher them. And I feel like that almost be a little bit insulting if I kind of keep fucking up the names. It'd be funny, but I mean, I would fuck up the names, so I'm not going to go. Other names, Yeshu, the region of Yoruba and Latin America. Venerated in Yoruba religion, Santeria, so on and so forth. Brazil, Yeshu is known, so it's also, apparently this is also spread not just from the African but also to Latino, so in Brazil as well, apparently. Various forms and names in Afro-Brazilian religions, so I'm thinking probably like the Caribbean, maybe like Trinidad and Tobago. They probably have examples of this. Varies around the world. Ish is one of the deities that has the widest cult in Cuba and in the world. This is one of the first deities that the religious receives when beginning within the practices of the Yoruba religion. Okay, so going further down, once again, there's definitely some depictions here that are, depict malevolence, and it's been, well, they refer here also to a cult, right? So it's not too surprising that there are things here that are going to be more controversial, because it's been mentioned before that Eshu can be a paradoxical figure at one point, different tales and stories being malicious and malevolent towards humanity, as well as being benevolent and giving good fortune. So it could be bad fortune and bad luck, and also good fortune and good luck. Okay. Wow, there's a lot just on this as well. Moving on. Next. All right. So this one we haven't covered in any detail, which is good. So this is Krishna. I will say I'm very familiar with, but even though so this is one of those, you could say like holy entities, which I am not, I am very familiar with, but I did not incorporate much into into our like fragmentation or personality. Is a major deity in Hinduism. He is worshipped as the 8th avatar of Vishnu, and also as the supreme god in his own right. He is a god of protection, compassion, tenderness, and love. Yeah, that kind of explains. I mean, no, I don't know. It's like, yes, but yes and no. Yes and no. It's like, I have a lot of appreciation for this, but it's like, once again, it's because it's also overdone in modern day pop culture, like the whole compassion thing and the whole, that's why I cannot help but chuckle. In the 90s, I was like, back then empathy had meaning. Back then compassion was a word that I used to use when I was in like elementary school, because it wasn't used often. Most people didn't use words like empathy, or back then the words for like that was like, people would always use the word sympathy, and obviously there was empathy and sympathy are different terms. They represent different things. Same thing with compassion, and same thing with understanding. That's something else. And so, when politics gets in the way, a lot of words that used to have like real technical meaning, they lose their meaning. They become this catch-all umbrella term, and it gets misused all the time and overused. And so it's that's why it's kind of sad, because I remember a time when I was really young. I had a lot of, let's just say, had a lot more. I would not be chuckling as hard. I would not be laughing like from the laughing my shit off at love, compassion. Like even the way I talk about love and compassion now is like almost like I'm mocking it, right? And that's because like, once again, the politics have been so fucking awful recently. Like the 2010s have been so full of this PC bullshit. But growing up early in the 90s, we needed more of that, because I remember in the like downtown core, there's so much abuse and bullying and harassment. Like that's what I grew up knowing, right? And it's still here, of course, but that's why I was back then, I would have a lot more acceptance towards things like understanding and stuff like that, before things went way out of control and then went from one extreme to the opposite extreme. So I don't mean anything when I laugh at the notion of Krishna being for it, because it's something that I hold dearly. But if anything, I have a even greater appreciation for resilience and perseverance, especially now, but even back then, because the world is not just, and I feel like a lot of people kind of grow up thinking that way, whether it's not because of like helicopter parenting, or they're pampered by like, they're like really, just like really like trust fund babies or something like that, or I don't know, they were just like spoiled by like politics or whatever. They got some deranged thoughts, starting to think the world is going to be fair or whatever. It's not fair. It's not. And I'm not endorsing you to accept that. I'm saying that, just don't throw a fit when things are unfair. Try to manage it the best that you can, right? Really just like find solutions, be practical, be efficient. It's like basic adulting, right? That's kind of the main emphasis here. Life isn't fair. The universe doesn't revolve around any one of us. It doesn't revolve around me, or it doesn't revolve around anyone. Things are going to go wrong. It's very normal. And if anything, if there's any sort of dysfunctional parenting, it would be to tell your kids that things are always going to be, that if you work hard and that you do everything right, and if you're always kind, that things are going to turn out well for you. But sometimes, oftentimes, because there is no moral law in the world, right? There is no such thing. This is something, it's a fabrication of humanity to make ourselves feel more comfortable and at peace and at ease. That's not actually how the world works. And you don't really want your kids to grow up and then like find out this harsh reality on their own, because you kind of like lied to them. It was a white lie. You meant, you know, the best of interests, and then they find out too late in life. Like, God, some people are learning at like their 30s. Like, it's like, how do you learn about this shit when you're already a full-grown, supposed to be like, you're supposed to have kids at this point, right? It's embarrassing, right? But it would have been, you know, I would have been much more understanding. Like, just learn this early on. Understand, like, if you look back in human history, people have been put on a crucifix, they have been torched alive. Like, a lot of times things just don't go well. And there's got to be some kind of understanding that, you know, doing, you know, you can't have that kind of expectation. That's not a healthy expectation to have. Because when you have these sort of unrealistic expectations, right, you end up disappointing yourself, and then what that ends up happening is you become emotionally dysregulated, and then you can't manage the situation anymore. And then that oftentimes means that you're going to contribute to an endless cycle of hatred, because then you're going to take your bitterness and resentment and you're going to dump it on, yeah, sometimes a stranger, yeah, sometimes who reminds you of something awful, but even worse, sometimes you're going to dump it on a loved one, on someone you truly care for. And so once again, I'm not trying to like dog on Krishna or anything like that, right? Because like, I love Krishna, but the thing is, because of the modern day politics, it's been kind of so overdone that the whole compassion thing, the whole empathy thing has lost all its meaning. And that's sad. I think that's really sad, right? That's what happens when things get too radicalized and move too far to one extreme, right? Too far this way or too far that way. Things that used to have meaning now become kind of toxic and poisonous. And so I think that's really sad, because I'm the kind of person back then who would have been like accepting and be like, you know, I would sit down. I'm the listener. Throughout most of my life, I was the friend who would constantly listen to my friends and just sit down and, you know, you can vent. I'll just like, you know, like just express yourself, express your frustrations. I'm here. But nowadays, like, it's gone so far off the rails that, you know, there really needed to be a counterculture. And so again, I'm not mocking Krishna. Like, I love Krishna, but that's kind of just, I don't mean any ill will on that. Yeah. So that's the search result here for Krishna. Major deity in Hinduism, he's worshipped as the 8th avatar of Vishnu. Also as the supreme god in his own right, he is the god of protection, compassion, tenderness, and love. He is widely revered among Hindu divinities. Krishna's birthday is celebrated every year by Hindus on Krishna. And, you know, anyways, going further down, you have more statues. Once again, on the right-hand side, showing a variety of different Hindu, Vishnu, Shiva, Indra, and so on and so forth, okay? And then there are names here I'm not even going to try to pronounce, because I feel like I would be almost insulting. I don't want to like butcher the names once again. Further down, many pictures, depictions. Did Lord Krishna begin holy cult tradition? The cosmic flute player. Okay, so I'm going to, again, very vibrant colors. It reminds me a little bit of in southern America, right? What they have, you know, like I said, Señor Nuevo de Guadalupe, also very colorful, vibrant colors. Okay. So next tab. All right, next tab. I can't believe 20 fucking minutes in, and I almost 20. I only covered 2 tab topics. Like I tell you, there's just so much. Like there's so much stuff. Like, all right, because all this is really relevant, right? You know. All right. Okay. I guess I'm not fully healed yet. So Wikipedia, Durga. Finally, Durga. Love the name. There's a lot of like, there's a lot of strength, and even in the way we would pronounce Durga, is a major Hindu goddess worshipped as a principal aspect. Like I said, this is like a maternal figure, and it's the strong maternal figure. But hopefully not the controlling. You know, we're not talking about like the borderline crazy one. You know, I'm not talking about like the dysfunctional like helicopter parenting who like kind of shelters you. When we're talking about like the bitch fest crazy who tries to like, you know, throw some deranged lunatic fit you had to walk on eggshells. I mean a healthy maternal figure, right? And that's what Durga kind of represents. Strength, protection. She's associated with protection, strength, motherhood, destruction, and wars. Durga's legend centers around combating evils and demonic forces that threaten peace. Once again, what did I say about having this like figure as being a main source of influence? But the thing is, like, again, my relationship with Durga is like very different, right? Because it's not like Themis, it's not like Senora Nueva de Guadalupe, it's not like with Eshu. Because growing up, I didn't know that Durga stood for this. I could only tell that she would sit on top of the tiger and it would probably represent something like that. But growing up in like Little India and stuff like that, I was surrounded by it, but whether or not I could say that, I can't say that particularly I understood the concepts that were conveyed and embodied by Durga's persona and her, I kind of like, you could say like her duties. Again, combating evils and demonic forces that threaten peace. Okay. But it's very relatable. Aspect of the mother goddess Devi. The word Durga literally means impassable, invincible, and unassailable. It is related to the word Durg, which means fortress, something difficult to defeat or pass, according to Monier Williams. So evidence of Durga-like images can probably trace back to the Indus Valley civilization. According to Askaparpula, a cylindrical seal from Kalibangan shows a Durga-like goddess of war, which is associated with a tiger. What I will say about this is I'm getting a lot of very similar themes to. So there's a traditional Chinese, like I spoke about this before, but if you go to, like, again, Damsamyu, which is, again, we don't have to go to that particular Buddhist temple. So there's like again, like I said, there's a lot of like so many analogies, so many connections between Hinduism and Taoism and particularly Buddhism, right? And even the roots of Buddhism were from India. But if you go to like traditional Chinese Buddhism here, one of the main figures, Guan Gong, is a warlord, and he represents exactly the same. It's almost one for one. The concepts are exactly the same. Well, he doesn't represent motherhood, that's for sure, right? But he's not a fatherhood figure. He's a warlord, one who went out and slayed in legends over 10,000 of vile criminals and prisoners, and throughout the previous dynasties, and there were 7 dynasties. And I don't know, there's like this thing that goes around Shenyun. A brilliant performance. I haven't been to. I don't think I've been there in a while. But anyways, that's it's during those dynasty era times that this figure was kind of composed, and he became a revered Buddha. But shares very similar themes, minus the motherhood part. He was more like a warlord. It's very different, but in that sense. But everything else, the themes are the same: protection, divine strength, destruction, war, right? The capacity to stand up against, again, today we have finally, quantified the qualitative aspects of what is destructive, undesirable types of behaviors. Like before, we wouldn't have said that. We would just like brand labels like, it's the 7 deadly sins, like lust, greed, wrath, envy, jealousy. Ooh, jealousy pisses me off. Cowardice pisses me off. All that kind of shit. But in modern day, right, we have the similar things, but they are properly categorized in terms of personality disorders. So we have things like, Machiavellianism and manipulation. We have vanity, arrogance, and narcissism. We have, antisocial behavior, psychopathy, sociopathy, hostility. We also have, kind of like schizo. We have like paranoia, delusions, grandiosity. Another one is, that kind of like, another one would be like sadism, right? A sadomasochistic kind of, like malice, and, some kind of like, it's almost like a fetish. Like, it's like gross, right? It's like, ew, like, what the fuck? You like find pleasure in like other people's pain. That's what sadism is, right? So we have quantified these now in modern day. We have the and which is great, right? This is a great development, right, in terms of scientific literature and so on and so forth. Keep in mind that, you know, when we talk about like scientific developments, they are objective in nature. So we say destructive, not evil, not bad or wrong, right? Because you've got to start, and this is a philosophical aspect, and you have an ethical aspect. You have to separate normative judgments from descriptive judgments, separating, you know, like morality from nature and just objectivity. So they're kind of like different things. They're tied, but they're different. So again, there's just a lot to talk about. And I want to say that there's a very strong connection here in terms of what they represent to a traditional Chinese figure, which I do have. I have the statue, but once again, the statue's not important. It's who I've. That's almost how I kind of like was able to stand up against. It's not almost. That's exactly how I was able to stand up against a recent like 2-year ordeal. It's because of the fragment that I've personified of Guan. It's a different kind of Buddha who is known traditionally to be a warlord who stands up and fights for the protection of innocent civilians, and he is ruthless, of course, towards like shitty people and criminals or whatever, right? That's how that works. Okay, so etymology, nomenclature, we talked about that already. So that's Durga. 10 forms of Durga. Who is Durga as a goddess? You go down here, you get depictions, right? A statue here, I can definitely tell you that we have one of these statues. Apparently, I didn't know that she was Durga, but we have Durga actually in our Buddhist temple as well. Again, lots of crossover. So there's a lot of crossover. Okay. Oh, by the way, it says down here. See, I have a lot of Sri Lankan friends, and at one point, one of them was named Devi. And in Durga, so down here in Britannica.com, right? It's like the dictionary. In Hinduism, a principal form of the supreme goddess, also known as Devi or Shakti, right? Devi is a very common name you will find in terms of like that's like I just said, I had colleagues and friends who are named Devi, and now I know exactly where that comes from, the inspiration behind it. So, which is great. It's great. All right, next, gotta pick up the pace a little bit. So this one here is we're back on Amazon again, which is, I guess, is helpful because when we're on Amazon we tend to talk a little bit less, right? There's less content. So this is, I'm not familiar with this at all. I was interested. Once again, I'm learning more about, again, there's so much history and culture and figures that I would say, I'm always going to like be missing. There's like a lot of the Egyptian pantheon that I'm not familiar with. There's a lot of the, Roman Greek Olympians that I'm not totally familiar with, although I have much more familiarity with that particular. There are definitely certain types of certain particular Buddhas, which I'm not familiar. And same thing applies over here, obviously, to the Yoruba, the Nigerian religion. And so when it comes to the Orishas, I guess I'm still also learning to this day, because there were quite a few that I think the only main influence in my life, particularly with our circumstances, was the two main figures were Eshu and Orunla. The rest I didn't really know much about. So in this case, I guess I'm learning about Santeria. Okay, Santeria Orisha. Okay, goddess of wind, storm, and transformation. Once again, a depiction of like nature, right? Like Mother Nature's storms. And again, things that were outside of everyday control. Well, they're still outside of control nowadays, but we now have meteorology to help us predict at least the forecast for over the next coming like week or so. In the 90s, we could only predict about 3-4 days ahead. Now we can predict maybe like a week or two. But in the past couple of decades. But then before that, the centuries and thousands of years and millennia, yeah, everybody, they couldn't predict the weather at all. It would be like the next, well, not really. Like they always have like, they would say like, oh, there's an oracle, right? They might have someone there, an elder oracle, so like a shaman. They would, there would be that kind of superstitious kind of shamanic rituals, or someone who could predict a little bit based off of like some hunches from observations about the behavior of animals and birds flocking to the wind breeze coming in a certain pattern, right? So there definitely was some capacity for prediction, right? I mean, human beings are fairly resilient creatures, right? And but once again, there's a lot of stuff that was unpredictable at the time. Such great, tremendous forces were often depicted and personified as gods, deities, goddesses. And so it's not surprising here that Centaria represents like a cyclone, a typhoon, a hurricane, a storm, and transformation. And then, the destruction comes with natural disaster, and then afterwards comes themes of rebirth, growth, and so on and so forth. Kind of like when, the California LA fires that burned down, and then afterwards there's perfect mush and ash for a growth of new crops afterwards. And it's not to justify it, but I'm just saying that basically that's the kind of the cycle that we kind of watch, and that the previous many generations past, they also observed the same thing, and then they personified that into like gods of fertilization, gods of fertility, gods of rebirth, and so on and so forth. And that's what they did. Again, useful themes that you can use to help you get by in everyday life, even today, and that maybe people don't use enough of. I don't know. Down here, highly detailed hand painted antique bronze finish, mimics bronze statue, hand sculpted miniature Centaria Orisha gift box. Going further down, product information, color, bronze, Veronese design, religious, polyresin, Centaria. Halloween, hand sculpted, 0.09 pounds, painted freestanding, all seasons, 1.14 ounces. So that's just the technical specifications. Item weight, collection name, customer reviews, 4.7 out of 5. More comparisons to other figures, and 235 ratings, 4.7 stars, so that's amazing. Okay, so a lot of people are very satisfied with this. Top reviews from the US, United States. Anne here says, perfect for my altar. I've been working with, I wanted this for my altar. It's quite small, but works for the sacred space. Another one from Shirley, it's perfect, the right size as described. Veronica, and it goes further down and down. I'm not going to go through all the reviews and stuff like that, but I just wanted to like read out a little bit of the positive reviews and stuff. I'm not purchasing this, but that's just what it's just another me, again, learning more about history. All right, so next, sorry about it, I'm not sure if you can hear, there's like sirens in the background. So next tab, Orisha of wisdom, knowledge, and divination. So Orunla, also known as Orunla, is and also in Latin America, Orunla is the Orisha of wisdom, knowledge, and divination, creator of and Babalawo concept. He is a high priest. Okay, and knowledge with, so I mean, could this one be any more clear? Orisha of wisdom and knowledge. All right, so, yeah, coming from someone like me who is like, epistemology, philosopher, metaphysics, and stuff like that. So it wouldn't be surprising that, this one, once again, just like Eshu has played a very large role in the capacity of my functioning, so has Orunla. Because I probably now, I don't, for most of my life, I don't use the word wisdom. But again, depending on the context and the situation, I'll speak whatever is necessary. Usually I won't speak at all. If possible, I'd rather not speak up, unless absolutely necessary. And if I do speak up when not necessary, right, it's like usually good times, then I'll just be like, just catching up with storytelling and, just like saying, hey, how you doing, man? Just like chilling out, catching up with my, friends and just seeing how they're doing with life. That's something I used to do a lot. I would pop into the restaurant and just ask, how Amy, how's it going? How's your family? How's your son? What's going on? How's the restaurant doing? That's the kind of thing I used to do when things were going well. That was like before like 2020 and stuff like that. But nowadays it's like, so nowadays my vocabulary's changed, and now after seeing how depraved society has kind of fallen, and then I've had to speak up, I had to retaliate. I've started to use the word wisdom more often. And I have to be careful with this because I don't want to, again, I don't like saying things so often that they become a buzzword. But I will say that in this particular context that I'm speaking about this topic, obviously in terms of Orunla, you can see the influence there. Like, I have a lot of appreciation, not just appreciation, it's like value. It's like, it's not just thankfulness or gratitude, it's pure value. Wisdom is incredibly valuable. When applied in the right context, when applied properly, you can misuse advice, as always. Everything you can misuse. Any tool you can misuse. Religion has always been misused constantly, all the time. But it can also be done for good reasons, and it can be used for good. So the same thing applies here when it comes to this particular, caricature, Orunla, and his, depiction of wisdom. So I would say that, once again, when I was in a university, one of the main things that I excelled in, and it was funny because like my professor would tell me, would tell the class of like 200 students, it's introductory philosophy or introductory ethics, whatever, that the general, don't be discouraged. Most people only get, the average median is like 64. I was like, bruh, you can't, really? That's like, 64, yeah? And I would regularly score into the like 90s, like 91, 92. And anything that had to do with psychiatry, social psychology, cognitive function, analytical philosophy, metaphysics, all epistemology, which is like the philosophy of knowledge. Like consistently, whether it was like essays or the testing or whatever, or the whole course itself, I found this stuff to be like second nature. It's always been like something like, it's like a blueprint on the back of my hand, right? Because I grew up needing this. This was not a choice. This is why I needed to survive, to overcome the obstacles and challenges. And so once again, this Orunla is very, very dear to me. Wisdom is very important to me. Not just in terms of thankfulness and gratitude, which is one of the series that we run on schedule, but it's just incredibly, incredibly valuable for a functioning, like long-term sustainable society, and just for management of the self as an individual. It's incredibly important. So if I go scrolling further down, you'll find some images again of Orunla. Orunla God, the divine wisdom, destiny, also of destiny apparently, is also in charge of that. Due which in Yoruba tradition, Orunla is revered as the deity of wisdom and knowledge. As a central figure in the cosmology, Orunmila embodies deep insights and profound wisdom that guide believers towards a balanced and harmonious life. Once again, two key words here that I always speak of: balance, moderation. Right? So again, well, I don't speak about destiny though, because destiny is like, for me, again, a little too superstitious, right? It's a little bit too much. Like, I'm not actually religious. I say that, to a certain degree, right? And so I don't believe in like necessarily, like, oh, you have a, we have a destiny. I'm not like that. It's more like, you have deterministic paths and you have choices you can make, and you should have the foresight and the maturity to foresee that, certain, choices and decisions that you make will lead you down a better path, and others will not. And things are, yes, unpredictable, but you still have some power. You do have power to kind of move yourself towards a better path, instead of like constantly like playing this like sob story victim mentality kind of thing, right? So you do have power in your choices. Every decision you make is an action. Your choices are actions, and that's very important to emphasize. So I think I want to, I want to distance myself from the notion of destiny, because it's kind of fixed, but and it's also kind of superstitious, right? But it's like too superstitious, you know what I mean? It can be a useful concept, but I won't go further than a concept. Okay, so let's kind of next. All right, so back to Amazon. This is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful depiction of Krishna. It's so intricate, it's so ornate. Veronese design, 10.5-inch Hindu god Krishna and the holy cow, cold cast resin bronze finish. And again, I've mentioned before that I particularly like bronze finish. Now for $90, right? Obviously this is like .com, it's the States. It's not currency converted. To show here, wow! I just want to examine, expanding the view here, the intricate details. I even want to look myself. Like the craftsmanship on this is so good. Straight down to the millimeter mark, which is again something you expect typically of like traditional Chinese, traditional Indian, traditional Roman, Greece, traditional Persian, Middle Eastern culture. We like very ornate engravings, very, very, very nice. Lots of like precision put into each of these monuments. So beautiful. There's not a whole lot to say about this though, because we already talked about Vishnu now. I mean, Vishnu, Krishna. Sorry, not Vishnu. We didn't talk about Vishnu yet. But Krishna we talked about already. So once again, like tenderness, love, compassion. That's the representation that Krishna has. High quality design resin. Vash. So holy cow. Going further down, more comparisons. So material, theme, brand, style, occasion, product dimensions, mounting type, freestanding, cartoon character, fish finished cartoon character. Krishna is not a cartoon character, all right. I don't know why. What does that even mean? I don't know. Amazon decided to say it. Mounting type. It just caught me off guard. Yeah, color, brand, theme, cartoon character. It's not a cartoon. Okay, anyways. Item weight. It's obviously a technical term. I don't know what it means, but it's a technical term. I would hope. I hope they don't actually mean that as a cartoon. It's not a cartoon, guys. Seasons, number of items, item weight, 3.31 pounds. Customer reviews, 4.6. All right. All right, the last tab. Again, beautiful, beautiful. This is a really intricate depiction of Krishna. Okay. All right, last one. It's going on almost 50 minutes now. Fucking insane. So Veronese design. 8-inch, 8.7/8 inch. Eshwelewa. Okay. God of Travelers, African Orisha, resin statue, bronze finish. Okay. And hold on a second. I hope that okay, I did have. Oh, I was about to have a heart attack. I thought I missed like the privacy graphic. Again, we already talked about it. So this is just to depict. This is the particular statue. Speaking of where he's on one hand holding like a baton, almost like I believe what that's supposed to symbolize. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you're familiar with the Yoruba, but the stick is supposed to be like it's an omen to point you in the right direction. Like again, Green Day. You know the song in the '90s, like the acoustic guitar. Another fork in the road. I can't try to remember. I don't want to butcher it because I feel like I'm gonna get the melody wrong, but. I shouldn't sing. I'm trying to come up with the tune and the rhythm, but Yeah, it's from Green Day. Just look up on just search up on like Spotify or YouTube. Green Day. Um, Another fork in the road. The lyrics I can't remember it. I'm sorry. Time passes you by. I can't. I'm not gonna hum it out. But again, similar theme here. Like I'm thinking the baton is like, you know, pointing you in a direction, like a guide. There we go. That's a good word. Guidance, right? Like parental guidance, but also like in terms of like a counselor guidance, you know, guidance counselor in school, parental guidance in terms of like domestic affairs and family, guidance also in terms of like, you know, generalized like wisdom and direction in life, right? So guiding you on the right path, steering you clear of obstacles, right? So I think that's what the baton symbolizes. I don't know, maybe that's not it, but you know, again, correct me if I'm wrong. And then no harm, no foul, and mistakes, right? Oh, I stopped using that, you know, no harm, no foul, you know, no bad blood. And then on his left hand is the head of it's like a voodoo head. I think it's like a cactus that's been like reshaped. Okay. All right, and the brand is Unicorn Studio. 314 ratings. 314 ratings. 4.9 star. Art deco made with high quality designer resin called cast bronze technique. Measures at 4 1/8 inch by blah blah blah. Remover of obstacles. Ganesha serves as a protector to bring success and prosperity into your life by helping to remove difficult obstacles. Again, what did I just say? All about guidance, right? Further down, again, more comparisons. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Freestanding Orisha, decorative, 1 pound, white cleaned, Art Deco, resin figures, people. Okay, that's it. Okay, we're done. Thank fucking God. No pun intended. Thank God. So we're gonna move on from this. And again, so we need a bit of a hiatus. In my anus. Jackass. That's very unholy. Hey, like I said, Eshu is a trickster, right? So, and a master of languages at that as well. So, so now we're going to have a hiatus, and we're gonna have like a couple episodes off on the different tangents. I don't want to do this, but we have to cover like, well, I kind of want to do this because I need to break from like the whole this particular domain of life, character, mythology, symbolism, abstract religion, so far folklore. We're going to deviate from this now for a moment because we need to cover other domains. So I'm going to be covering like finances. I mean, I hate this, but we had to touch like we had to touch fucking LinkedIn again, and like and income tax again. So unfortunately, but it'll be a good break. All right, so I'll see you guys next one. Signing out. Peace. Okay. Cheers.